So, um, welcome everybody. I am really excited about today's topic, and I am really excited to see such a high interest in learning more about our newest employment service, benefits planning. So, to get us started, though, we always like to start off kind of finding out who's all in the audience. So, real quick, we have a quick poll. We want to know what your role is. Are you a support coordinator, a service provider? Maybe you're a regional office employee. Maybe you work for one of the other state offices. Maybe you're a family member or an individual or maybe some other role. So Kat, real quickly, you guys got about a minute to let us know. Or actually, it looks like 18 seconds. Excuse me. You got about 10 seconds left to let us know what your role is. And it looks like time is already up. Um, Kat, are you able to pull up the results yet? Great. It looks like the bulk of us that had answered support coordinators. So, uh, glad you're interested in learning more about this new service. So, if you were with me in May, this might look very familiar. So in May, we did an overview of all of our employment services. So this graphic is probably going to look very familiar to you if you participated in our May Champion of Employment webinar. So you think about for the past, oh, 5 years at least. Actually, it's been more than 5 years. But for at least the last 5 years and a little bit longer, we've had a service to address the support a person needs no matter where they are in that process of going to work, that work cycle. So whether it was they were just trying to figure out what would make a good job match, what jobs they were interested in, what their next steps needed to be, or they needed to go develop those universal workplace behaviors so that they would be more successful in that employment. They needed help with actually getting that job, or they needed help just to learn and maintain that job. So we've had a service to address the support one may need no matter where they're at in that cycle of working. The newest service, the benefits planning, uh, really kind of touches all of those phases a person can go through. So you think about it, when someone's trying to figure out what might make a good job match, what kind of job they would be interested based on their interest and abilities, they might have questions about, okay, well, I've got to maintain some government benefits, or, I can't jeopardize my Medicaid. What how much am I going to be able to work and earn and still maintain those Medicaid benefits? So somebody might be needing a little bit of benefits planning along with some career planning to kind of figure out what's going to be that good balance of earnings and working and maintaining their benefits. Um, Especially, even when they're getting the job, they might need some assistance there. Hey, is this job, what's being offered going to align with uh, what I've identified as my balance. And of course, when somebody's working, we know that people get offered raises or they get offered increase in hours. So there could be questions of, hey, can I do this? How does this work? So today's topic, we really want to focus on the newest of our services, the benefits planning. And when we leave here, I hope that you will be able to have a better idea of who would benefit from this service and how to request this. So to kind of get us started here, I have a question for you. I want to know if there is specific information you want to get out of today's webinar. So real quick, let me know in the chat box, what specific information do you want to get out of today? So when you leave 2:30, what do you hope to have answered? And I will warn you, I'm not afraid of silence. I'll wait until I get one response in the chat box. Ah, there we go. Okay, so some of the things I'm hearing, qualifying requirements for Social Security and SSI disability. So probably won't be able to answer that question, but you can definitely reach out to me and I can provide you that assistance outside of this webinar. Wanting to know if clients can come before starting to look for a job so they know the guidelines. So Cheryl, I definitely hope to answer that question today. What has to be in the support plan to get the request approved? Yes, we're going to definitely cover that. And can a TCM entity provide this service? So we didn't really specifically address that in this webinar, but Teresa, what I can tell you, through our waiver funding, if a TCM provider is providing that service, they would have to adhere to conflict-free case management. So basically, if we're funding benefits planning and the TCM provider is the provider of choice, then that person would have to be receiving case management from a different entity other than that TCM entity. So we do have to adhere to conflict-free case management. So how many hours can one work before it affects their benefits? Again, we're probably not going to address that, but that's something that can be addressed under the benefits planning service. And I see there's still some coming in. So I want to move on so we don't lose any valuable time here, but still keep them coming, and I'm going to try and make sure that we do address all of your questions. So what is benefits planning? This is a brand new service. It's designed to inform an individual about competitive integrated employment and to assist them to assess if it will result in increased economic self-sufficiency or financial benefit. So kind of when we're wondering, hey, can somebody utilize this service to kind of figure out how much they can earn and still maintain those benefits? Or you know, how can they be more self-sufficient? So how can they utilize those work incentives to be more self-sufficient and not have to rely on that government cash benefit? So that's some of what benefits planning is going to provide. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to achieve here is we're wanting to help people make that informed decision about how much they can work or earn and provide that assistance that they may need to utilize work incentives to become more self-sufficient. So that's what we're trying to achieve with this service. So what kinds of things can benefits planning do? So it's going to provide information about those rules that one has to adhere to when they're getting supplemental security income, SSI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, or if they're getting what's called Disabled Adult Child Benefit. Some benefit specialists will refer to it as Childhood Disability Benefit. Basically, they're drawing on a parent's Social Security benefit record. So, and in the near future, I suspect that we will probably see some individuals that might be drawing what we call disabled widowers benefits, as we see more individuals with disabilities kind of exercising their rights to get married, to have those types of relationships. We're probably going to see some individuals with disabled widowers benefits. So the benefits planning will help them understand what are the rules, why are they receiving that service, what things do they need to adhere to when receiving those services, how does work affect those benefits, what work incentives are available to those benefits. Um, kind of helping an individual to see what their options are. Uh, that way they can make that informed decision. It's also going to be talking about Medicaid, Medicare, housing subsidies, ABLE accounts, how all of that kind of plays in together. Some of the topics that they might be talking about, kind of helping an individual understand the reporting requirements. How do I report my work income? When do I need to report my work income? If somebody decides that they want to do a PASS plan, a plan for achieving self-sufficiency, or they want to do what's called a PES plan, property essential to self-support. Under benefits planning, that service would provide them the assistance with creating that plan, getting it approved, and kind of making sure they're sticking to it. There's a number of Social Security work incentives that are available. So for individuals that want to be more self-sufficient, they might need a little bit of assistance kind of navigating those waters of how they use those work incentives, when they use those work incentives, and maximizing the use of those work incentives. So again, under the benefits planning service, that's the type of assistance that can be provided under that service. Also with the service, there's probably going to be some verification, benefit verification. So the benefits specialist is going to want to make sure that this is the type of benefit that person's receiving. They might want to coordinate with Social Security to make sure that the information that they're going to share with that person is accurate and true. So, and I noticed the chat box kind of died down. So if you guys do have questions, still keep them going. So who can benefit from benefits planning? So the benefits planning service is available for individuals who are considering, who are thinking about employment and trying to figure out, you know, do I want to pursue employment? You know, what's that going to look like for me? So somebody who's considering that employment, who's contemplating the potential of being employed. Somebody who's actually seeking employment. Could be somebody who is either considering advancing in their career, or they're they've been offered an opportunity to advance. It could also be for individuals who just need support with managing that work and benefits while employed. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, some individuals, you know, they're going to have questions. They've been employed, you know, now they're getting offered a pay raise, or there's the option to increase hours, and they're just wanting to see what their options are, what that would look like, what kind of effect that would have on their benefits, and maybe how they can utilize work incentives to do that if they wanted to. Who it's not for, it's not for people who aren't even contemplating work, who aren't even seeking employment, or who aren't even working at all. So if somebody's not interested in employment at all, they most likely would not make a good fit for this service. So I know sometimes I would get asked questions from people about Medicaid spend down. Were they working? Nope. Had no interest in working. They had questions about the Medicaid spend down. That would not be an appropriate use of our benefits planning service. It's not for somebody to simply report their monthly earnings to Social Security or Family Support Division. So in our waiver renewal, that is something we have included in with our support employment service. So if that's the only support somebody needs is help in reporting their monthly earnings, that's something that can be done under supported employment. All right, so simply put, we wanted to kind of keep this simple. Who would make a good candidate? Somebody who's interested in exploring work or participating in pre-vocational services. So the key there is that the person doesn't have a specific job that they are actively taking steps to pursue. So they aren't doing any kind of job seeking activities. They have not identified what kind of job they're interested in. This could also be taking a hard skill training course. So taking college courses or participating in a training program through Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development or a community college, trade school. So things that come to mind, I think of individuals that may be participating in a coding class, launch code, because they're interested in getting into IT. Individuals who might be, taking auto body classes because, they want to get into that mechanics, that auto body. So if an individual is either completing job seeking activities or they're participating in a training for a specific job afterwards, those individuals are probably going to be better suited through the WIPA provider. So for our funding, for DMH funding, we're looking at individuals who would not be eligible for WIPA, so or would not be able to access WIPA services. So again, looking for somebody who doesn't quite have that specific job goal yet. They haven't identified it yet, but they're interested in kind of figuring it out, looking at it. So someone who has Medicaid, but not a cash benefit. So they might not have SSI or SSDI. They may not have a parent's benefit, but they have Medicaid. The key here is they must be interested in exploring work, seeking work, or currently working or considering an advancement. And I see in the chat box, there's a question about WIPA, and I apologize. So WIPA stands for Work Incentive Planning Assistance. So in Missouri, we have two WIPA providers, Paraquad and Missouri PNA, Missouri Protection and Advocacy. Those are the two WIPA providers in Missouri. So basically, under our service definitions, we've basically said that individuals who are able to access WIPA should be utilizing WIPA for the benefits planning. So that kind of leads us to the next thing. So what if somebody doesn't meet that criteria that I just mentioned? They have Social Security benefits. They're currently seeking a job. They know exactly what kind of job they want, or maybe they're working. We want to make sure that we're referring them to that Work Incentive Planning Assistance Program. So there's the WIPA hotline. and that's the route for referring people. So we would make sure that that person contacted that number and did that referral. For individuals who might need assistance, you can help them through that. So you can do like a um, uh, have them involved in that phone call or calling together to make that referral to that WIPA provider. So, limits of our benefits planning service. So, um, it can only be provided if a Missouri-based Social Security work incentive planning and assistance program were sought and services were not available, accessible, or applicable due to either ineligibility or because wait lists that would result in services not being available within the 30 calendar days, excuse me. The ISP must document that the WIPA services were not accessible, applicable, or available. So, in talking with our WIPA providers, Paraquat and Missouri Protection and Advocacy, basically everybody who contacts that WIPA hotline will receive some amount of assistance. Now, basically, they're what they call their individualized WIPA services, which are those in-depth benefits analysis. That may not be applicable to all. So if you go back, and I'm going to scroll back here to previous slide here. So if you kind of go back to the slide and think about, okay, if you have somebody who is just starting to think about work, and maybe they're concerned about how work is going to affect their benefits. So they're kind of like, yeah, I might be interested in work. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure yet. I want to make sure that I'm not going to be jeopardizing my Social Security benefits or my Medicaid. So you've got somebody who's interested in employment. They're considering employment, but they want to make sure that it's not going to jeopardize other benefits. Because they don't have that job goal identified, they're not actually taking active steps to seek employment at that time. A WIPA provider is going to be very limited in what they can provide. They're not going to be able to provide that in-depth benefits planning at the time. They might be able to provide some information, but more than that, it's just going to be referring them on to something else. So again, if we know somebody is not going to be able to get that in-depth service from that WIPA provider because they're not actively taking steps to seek employment right now, they don't have that identified, that gives us the justification. We just need to document that in the ISP. We need to state that in the ISP that the WIPA services would not be applicable to them. WIPA, they are limited to serving people who have SSIs or SSDI. So if somebody only has Medicaid and they don't have a Social Security cash benefit, we know they never applied for Social Security benefits. Again, that can be justification. They would not be eligible for WIPA services. Document that in the ISP so we can request the employment, so we can request the benefits planning. If you are uncertain, if you don't know, when in doubt, go ahead and refer them on. So again, that referral number, that hotline is 866-968-2874. Once they connect with that WIPA provider, if that WIPA provider refers them back to us, document that in the ISP as,
Sandy,
yes.
It's 7842.
Did I say 7482?
Something like that.
I apologize. Okay, thank you for correcting me. 866-968-7842. Thank you, Kat. So again, if you assist a person to refer to that, to make that hotline call to WIPA, and then that WIPA provider refers them back to us, document that in the ISP to show that, hey, they did try to access, it's unavailable to them. All right. Real quick, I see a question about defining what a unit is. A unit is 15 minutes. Yes. So when we say that an individual can get a maximum of 60 units per annual plan year, we are talking about 15 hours. So I see there's a question about how to find a certified benefits planner, so we're going to get to that. The service is provided in 15-minute increments. It has to be identified in the ISP. The ISP is going to drive it. So you would have to say how many units. So I see there's a question about the billing process. We don't really have it in this webinar to kind of talk about the billing process, but it's pretty much like any other of our services. So once it's approved and you've been providing it, the provider can then follow their process for billing for services. There's a question about a person receiving funding from VR. Can they still qualify for benefits planning service through DMH, or do they have employment services funded by DMH? And way I'm understanding that is, can they be receiving VR funded supports and access benefits planning through waiver funding, or do they have to be utilizing waiver funded employment supports in order to access benefits planning as well? Per our service definitions, as I understand them, there's nothing stating that they have to be accessing our employment services, our other waiver funded employment supports, to be accessing benefits planning. So could somebody be using VR for employment supports? Yes. Could somebody not be using any supports for employment? Yes. Again, with the ISP, we just have to document why the benefits planning is needed and address the availability of WIPA. There's a question about exception for the conflict-free case management. My understanding is no. Let's see. Okay. All right. So who can provide this service? And I think there was a few questions in the chat box that I didn't read off that specifically have to do with this. So we are looking for individuals who work for agencies that have one of three credentials. They're either going to be a certified community work incentive counselor, a community partner work incentive counselor, or a work incentive practitioner. There are currently only two ways to get these certifications. So The first two, the Certified Community Work Incentive Counselor and the Community Partner Work Incentive Counselors, are credentials that Virginia Commonwealth University uses. So individuals would have had to go through Virginia Commonwealth to get one of those two credentials. The Work Incentive Practitioner credential is the one that Cornell University uses. So the process for service providers, if they're interested in providing this employment service, first they have to have somebody on staff who has one of these three credentials. So they either have to go hire somebody who has a certified work incentive counselor credential, community partner work incentive counselor credential, or work incentive practitioner credential, or they have to help a staff person access the training. The division currently, we are trying to help service providers access Cornell's work incentive practitioner credential program, in the hopes that, you know, that will help more service providers be able to offer this service. So if a service provider has somebody with this credential and they want to add this to their contracted services that they can provide, they need to reach out to either their vendor service coordinator or our provider relations rate and enrollment team. So the rate and enrollment team, so if they go through the vendor service coordinator, the vendor service coordinator is most likely going to connect them with the rate and enrollment team. If they reach out directly to the rate and enrollment team, that rate and enrollment team is probably going to come back with, we need proof of you meeting the training requirements, of you having the credentials. So I can tell you right now, we are still waiting a code from MoHealthNet CMS. So we don't yet have that code to actually add that service to people's contracts. So if you go look in Seymour to see if an agency you work with has the ability to provide benefits planning, you're not going to see it yet. But we are very hopeful that in the near future, we are going to have this code and we are going to get service providers on board with providing this service. I can tell you right now, we have a number of service providers currently going through Cornell University's work incentive practitioner coordinate credential program right now. So we are getting service providers connected to that training so that they can take it, so that they can offer it. And I'm still getting calls from service providers with continued interest. So this course is offered 3 times a year. So we continue to try to educate service providers about this opportunity so that we can continue to get more service providers connected to that training to be able to provide that service. So how do you find out which providers have it in your area? So those providers with that community work incentive counselor or that community partner work incentive counselor or work incentive practitioner credential on staff at that agency and offering that benefits planning service through our waiver funded supports are going to be listed in Seymour. So if you're not familiar with Data Central and how to run a report, here are some quick instructions. So you're going to go visit datacentrals.dmh.mo.gov or Data Central Reports, datacentralreports.dmh.mo.gov. You're going to click on the plus that is just to the left of Seymour in the tree node. They're on the left side of your screen. That's going to expand a list. Then you're going to click on the plus to the left of the provider directory. Again, that's going to expand another list, and you want to click on search by service. That will then give you the option of saying, okay, I'm looking at this regional office. If you want to limit it by certain providers, or you can just do all the providers. And then you're going to be looking at service codes, all that stuff. So I know that a number of you have told me that running that report from Data Central isn't always that accurate. One, what you'll notice is only those service providers who have gone through that specific regional office are going to show up. So if a provider went through a different regional office and you didn't list that regional office in that search, they're not going to show up. Also, the other thing is it's not going to show you by county. So sometimes what we see is some providers are willing to serve some counties in a regional office, but not all of the counties that regional office touches. So, you know, there can be some frustration. You're going, okay, you're listed as a service provider, but you're not providing the support in my county, the county that I need it. So if you're familiar with our provider maps, our employment service provider maps, I am in the process of trying to update them. We're going to make sure that those service providers providing benefits planning are also listed on these maps. So you should be able to see them. And we're going to add a little key so that you'll know, okay, this provider is providing benefits planning as opposed to all of the other employment supports. So just real quickly, making sure I did not overlook any questions. I see there's a question about will there be a training specifically for benefits planners to know how supports provided should be documented? I'm not sure about that, but I can get back to you on that. And I see somebody from our provider rate and enrollment team is on the webinar today and provided the contact information. So if you're a service provider and you're needing to contact our provider rate enrollment team, it is in the chat box for you. I see there's a question about certification as an individual, or do you have to work for an agency? With this, if you're talking about the 50% reimbursement stipend that the division is offering to service providers for having staff, that is really intended for our contracted service providers that already offer at least one service, and it doesn't have to be an employment service. It could be a day hab provider, or it could be a residential provider. Doesn't necessarily have to be an employment service provider, but it is intended to help our service providers, our already contracted service providers, be able to access that training, to have staff get trained to then be able to offer this service to our waiver recipients. So now let's talk about what must be included in that ISP. So as I mentioned earlier, there needs to be a statement of availability or unavailability of that work incentive planning assistance program support. This could be that they're ineligible because they don't have a Social Security benefit. They don't have SSI, they don't have SSDI, they don't have a parent. You know, maybe they just turned 18 and all they've got is Medicaid, but you're talking about employment and there's questions about how much can they work and not jeopardize that Medicaid. So it could be that the WIPA support is inaccessible at this time due to them not having a specific job goal. So like I mentioned earlier, it could be an individual who's considering employment, they're thinking about it, they might be interested, but they want to learn more about much work can affect their benefits and what their options are before they commit to saying, I'm all in, let's go find me a job. So if somebody's kind of early on in that stages of exploring work, again, that WIPA provider is not going to be able to provide that in-depth benefits analysis during those very early stages of contemplating work. Now, the unavailable of WIPA supports due to wait list. Again, right now, what I'm hearing from the WIPA providers, they don't have a wait list. They're expected to provide some amount of support within 5 days of getting referred on from that, of getting that referral. So basically, again, if that WIPA provider then refers that person back to us, if they say, hey, we think you're going to be better served through DMH benefits planning, you can use that as justification that WIPA was not available to them. So like with any other service, you need to have some kind of goal or outcome. How does that service assist that individual with achieving that outcome? What are you hoping to get from the benefits planning service? What are you trying to achieve by utilizing that service? You also want to make sure that in your request, in the ISP, you are adhering to our service definition. So you want to make sure that that unit request fits within the limit. So again, benefits planning is limited to 60 units per plan year. The support that you're requesting, the support that you're saying that they need, is allowed within the service definition. Again, if you remember, if somebody just needs help with reporting their income, or let's say they've already gotten some in-depth benefits analysis, they know that for them, where they're at right then in that moment, they're saying, hey, I already know I can't work more than 25 hours, but I need support with making sure I don't work more than 25 hours per week. That is something that could be provided under that supported employment. So if somebody needs help with making sure that they don't work too many hours and they know what that number is, they've already gotten some in-depth guidance as to what their options are and what they need to do, and they've already made that decision, or they just need help with just reporting that income to Social Security, that is stuff that can be provided under supported employment. So again, the support needs to match the intent of the service. So if you go back and you think, what's the intent of the service? The intent of the service is to help individuals make an informed choice about how much they can work or earn, maintain their benefits, understand their options, and utilize those work incentives if they so choose that. So, one of the questions I want to know from you now is, what do you feel that you need to be more comfortable with being able to request benefits planning? Is there something as support coordinators, as service providers, that you feel would help you feel more comfortable? What do you need? So go ahead and put that in the chat, and I'm going to check and make sure I've covered all the questions. Okay, I do see something in the chat box. Okay, so training for that referral process. So, you know, good to know that you're feeling like you still need some more guidance with how do I make that referral? So good suggestion. And if anyone else has any other suggestions that they would like for me to know, to help you guys feel more comfortable with utilizing this service, please keep putting those in the chat box. So, quick reminder that moving forward for the next 4 months, we're going to be focusing on each of the employment services. So for December, January, February, and March, I'm going to be taking a deeper dive into each of our existing employment services, covering what changes were made to them with the waiver renewals, so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable and understand those services a little bit more. So second Wednesday of each month from 1:30 to 2:30. So again, those dates are December 8th, January 12th, February 9th, and March 9th. And again, just like today, we kind of focused on the benefits planning. So December 8th, we are going to take a deeper dive into one of the other employment services, and we're just going to keep going through each of the employment services until we've covered them all. All right, so when you get off, please don't forget to answer the survey questions at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is very useful in making sure that these webinars are worthy of your time and that you're getting the information that you need. So I do look at those surveys. So please, 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 please give me your feedback. And anytime you have any questions, so if I was not able to answer one of your questions today, I know there was a couple that I had basically indicated, please reach out to me. So I know there was a question about the billing process, about service providers accessing that training. So definitely, I know there was a question about qualifying requirements for Social Security or SSI. So please reach out to me. My phone number is 636-926-1229. And my email is sandy.kaiser, and that is spelled KEYSER@dmh.mo.gov. Thank you, everyone. That's it.